Hi, and welcome to Social Smarts. I'm Agnes, and I've worked with some of the top tech and social companies in the world. Today, we're looking at TikTok and diving into why the US and other governments are worried about people using it and what that means for regular people like you and me. This is part two of a discussion we began last week. Let me start by saying this controversy isn't about the app, it's about global politics. China does not even allow US-based social media companies, including Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, or even Google in their country. Let's get into it. Last week, we talked about data collection and the concerns the US government has about surveillance or spying. In addition, with so many young users on TikTok, the US worries that children's data might not be properly protected. That said, it's important to remember that every company that operates in the US has to abide by local laws in order to do business here. That's how it works with any company, anywhere in the world. Another major concern that governments have is content moderation. Which videos get to stay on platform and which ones are removed or deprioritized. TikTok, like all social media platforms, has guidelines about what content is allowed. You can learn about content rules by looking up the community guidelines. It's basically the code of conduct that everyone has to abide by. Each social media platform has one. Snap, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, Discord, Twitch, any of them. They all have community guidelines. Because ByteDance is based in China, the US government worries that the Chinese government could influence content moderation choices. For example, what happens if TikTok is asked to suppress videos that criticize China or to promote content that aligns with the Chinese government's views? These are all hypothetical examples that the US government officials may be worried about. Why is content moderation important? We talked about how our psychology can be manipulated on social media with things like the power of repetition, the bandwagon effect, or the illusory truth effect. If your feed starts showing you content that has subtle or even clear messages in it, through time, they will influence how you think. It's how we're wired, and that can impact how we view the world, our neighbors, or our way of life. Let's say that there's a protest happening somewhere in the world, and people start sharing videos of it. The US government is concerned that if those videos don't align with the Chinese government's views or goals, those videos could possibly be removed or suppressed. And that would mean that people watching the content aren't seeing the whole story. This isn't just theoretical. There have already been reports of suppressed content related to political topics. It's one thing to do that in China where people live within that government, but other governments are concerned that there isn't anything to stop that type of thing happening to content in the US or elsewhere. And this is called information suppression, where certain ideas or issues are kept from public view. It could limit our freedom to see different viewpoints, which is especially concerning in democracies like the US, where freedom of expression is a core value. Another big concern is content amplification, the opposite of suppression. Instead of hiding certain content, the algorithm could potentially boost or amplify certain types of videos. Governments worry that TikTok could amplify content that aligns with certain political goals while downplaying other perspectives. Let's say, for example, that the algorithm starts promoting ideas that highlight a particular viewpoint about an election or a social issue. If those views are amplified over others, it could sway public opinion without people even realizing it was happening. And this kind of influence could be powerful during times like elections, protests, social movements. Let's look at a famous example from recent history, the Cambridge Analytica scandal. In 2018, it was discovered that a British consulting firm called Cambridge Analytica had harvested data from millions of Facebook users without their consent. They used this data to build profiles of people and show them highly targeted ads to influence their opinions. This was a huge deal because it highlighted how data from social media could be used to manipulate people's views and even influence elections. This led to a major backlash against Facebook and resulted in stricter regulations for data privacy. Cambridge Analytica was probably the first widespread example of how social media can take advantage of our psychology and manipulate people. It's one thing for private companies to show you ads based on your interests, but it's another thing entirely if a government could use that data to influence what people in other countries see and how they think. Why does this matter? Imagine if another country could shape what people in the US think by controlling the content that they see. Could that be used as a tool of influence? Because of this tight government connection that we've been discussing, TikTok's ownership has raised some big concerns, especially with the group in the US government called CFIUS, short for the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States. Think of CFIUS as the team of national security guards for American companies. Their job is to check when companies from other countries want to buy or invest in businesses in the US to make sure that these deals don't create problems for the country's national security. Here's a simple way to think about it. Imagine you had a friend from another country who wanted to borrow your personal journal. You'd probably want to make sure that they wouldn't share your secrets or use your private information. CFIUS does something similar, but they do it for the whole country. If a foreign company wants to buy a large part of a US business, especially a tech company that handles a lot of data, CFIUS steps in to make sure it doesn't create risks. They are particularly concerned about companies from countries like China or Russia, where governments can ask businesses to hand over information or cooperate with them. If CFIUS finds something risky about a foreign company, they have the power to make them change their plans. They might tell a company to sell its part of a US business or take extra steps to protect the data that they're handling. CFIUS worries that TikTok's user data, like what videos people watch, their locations, or other personal details, might be accessed by the Chinese government, even though TikTok says it wouldn't share this data and that data isn't even stored in China. What does this all mean for people like you and me? How can we protect ourselves while still enjoying TikTok? We talked about how you need to look at content critically before. It's good practice to do that regardless of what you're watching or reading. Here are some things to watch out for. Be aware of content bias. If you start noticing that you're seeing the same kinds of ideas or opinions repeatedly, think about why that might be. Is it because those views are more popular, or could it be that the algorithm is pushing certain content towards you? If you're concerned about that, do something different, change your feed. 2, limit data sharing. Check your privacy settings in-app. You can control some of the data social media companies collect by turning off location sharing, or by not linking to other accounts like Facebook or Instagram. Turn off background app refresh. The less data you share, the less there is to potentially be used in ways you might not like. Recognize sponsored content. Not all ads look like ads. Sometimes people who seem like regular users on social media are actually being paid to promote certain ideas or products. If you see content that's repeatedly pushing a specific message, consider if it might be sponsored or part of a larger campaign. Take a moment to do your own research. Don't just accept everything that you see as fact. Try to verify information from other sources and see if there are different perspectives. Pay attention to emotional content. Algorithms tend to promote content that triggers strong emotions like anger, excitement, or sadness because it keeps people engaged. Be cautious with content that seems designed to get a big reaction out of you. Sometimes this is done intentionally to keep you watching, and the information might not be as balanced as it seems. So what's the big takeaway? TikTok, like any social media platform, is a tool. It can be a fun place to connect, create, and explore, but it's important to remember that it's a business, and it collects a lot of data about you and uses that data to surface ads and other things to you because that's how it makes money. Because of its connection to China and the way the Chinese government operates, the US and other governments believe there are unique concerns about how TikTok's data collection, content moderation, and algorithms might be used. Now, does that mean TikTok's bad? No. It's a company and it has to operate within the laws of wherever it operates. Lots of people love it. The US and other governments want to protect its citizens from any potential national security risk, especially when it comes to how data can be used. And that's why they have a department like CFIUS. We don't know how this is going to turn out. You can't control what companies or governments do. But now that you know more about why there is a concern, you can be more critical about what you share and how you think about the content that you see. And this is a skill that you're going to use your whole life. And this is why we're talking about this stuff, so that you have the knowledge and tools to make good decisions. I hope you learned something. Until next time, you got this. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.